For more than 2 decades, China has held onto a status that gave it an advantage in world trade, the title of a developing country. Now Beijing says it's giving up the benefits that come with the status. The move has been welcomed in many capitals and dismissed in Washington as long overdue. But behind this decision lies a bigger story, a story about who benefits from global trade and how that power is shifting. In this episode, we look at why China's announcement matters now and how it could reshape the rules of commerce for years to come. I'm Ezgi, and this is Aloud. This show brings you articles made for audio. In this episode, we've adapted the story, Why Did China Give Up the Title of Developing Country? Published on TRT World on September 25th, 2025 by Kazim Alam. China has made a decision that has caught the world's attention. On September 24, Chinese Premier Li Qiang announced China would no longer seek the special and differential treatments that developing nations receive as part of trade agreements under the World Trade Organization, or WTO, the body that sets rules for trade between nations. The Director General of the WTO, Nkosi Okonjo-Iweala, describes the objectives of the organization as so.
The objective of the WTO is to help members and countries use trade to enhance living standards, create jobs, and support sustainable development. The WTO is where governments set out the rules for global trade. These rules are designed to create a fairer, more open, and more predictable world trading system, and to ensure that all countries, rich and poor, can reap the benefits of trade.
When China joined the WTO in 2001, it was still a $1.3 trillion economy. Today, it's worth nearly $19 trillion, coming in second to the United States. The WTO was established on July 1st, 1995. A few years after the collapse of the Soviet Union. It was celebrated as the biggest reform of international trade since the end of World War II. The global body allowed member countries to use free trade as a tool for job creation and rapid economic growth. But a sudden opening of global trade could cause serious challenges for underdeveloped countries. For example, advanced economies like the US and China could flood developing countries with cheap products, killing locally manufacturing jobs and wiping out their nascent industrial base. The WTO gave countries like China space to grow. Developing nations were allowed longer transition periods before fully opening their markets. They faced fewer trade barriers when exporting to rich economies, and they were not expected to contribute to international funds such as the one tackling climate change. For China, this was crucial. It meant time to build its industries, create jobs, and move millions of people out of poverty. EU Commission Deputy Spokesperson Olaf Gil called on China to go further, saying the change should also be reflected in its earlier agreements.
We welcome China's decision to no longer avail itself of developing country status in future trade agreements, but I would also recall that we firmly believe China should stop availing itself of developing country status under also existing agreements.
The U.S. has long argued that China is too big, too powerful to still enjoy the benefits meant for developing nations. Presidents from both parties have accused Beijing of using the system to its advantage, while American workers paid the price. But Beijing had pushed back. Its argument, yes, the economy is huge, but income per person is still far below the levels of rich countries. The average income in the U.S. is still more than 6 times higher than that of China, despite China's massive economic growth in the last 4 decades. Premier Li Qiang said China will always be a developing country, even though it will not seek the benefits attached to the title under WTO agreements. The title suits China's long-term strategic aims. For years, China has presented itself as the leader of the Global South, the group of countries that are often opposed to US-dominated world order. So why now? The U.S. has long demanded that China stop using its developing country status to seek special concessions in the global trading system. Since coming to power in January, the Trump administration has used tariffs as an economic weapon against not only its rivals like Russia, but also allies such as India and Canada, ostensibly to reduce a massive trade deficit and reshape global supply chains in its favor. So China says it wants to strengthen the global trading system at a moment when it is under pressure. Around the world, governments are raising tariffs, restricting imports, and questioning the future of free trade. Without naming the United States, China's Commerce Ministry framed the decision as a gesture to protect multilateralism and stability in trade. From $1.3 trillion to $19 trillion, China has come a long way since joining the WTO. Letting go of the developing country status may be symbolic, but it marks a new stage in how China wants to be seen. No longer shielded, but still fully equal to the world's richest. And it leaves one question open. In this era of trade wars and shifting alliances, what role will China play in shaping the rules of global commerce? And that's all for this episode of Aloud, based on the article Why Did China Give Up the Title of Developing Country, published on TRT World on September 25th, 2025. I'm your host, Ezgi. Thanks for listening.